You asked me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, would get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine.
You see, I have had in my life a number of pleasant experiences. The earliest one, when I was a kid, I invented a problem for myself, the sum of the powers of the integers. And in trying to get the formula for it, I developed a certain set of numbers that formula for which I couldn't get. And I discovered later that those were known as the Bernoulli numbers, and discovered in 1739. So I was up to 1739 when I was about 14, you see. And then a little later I discovered something. I find out I just invented a thing called, which we now call operator calculus. And that was invented in 1890 something. You see, I was inventing things that came later and later. But the moment when I began to realize that I was now working on something new was when I read about quantum electrodynamics at the time, and I read a book and I learned about it. For example, I read Dirac's book, and he had these problems that nobody knew how to solve, and were described there. I couldn't understand the book very well because I really wasn't up to it. But there, in the last paragraph at the end of the book, it said, "Some new ideas are here needed." And so there I was. Some new ideas were needed. Okay, so I started to think of new ideas.
I have a friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, "Look how beautiful it is." And I'll agree. And he says, "You see, as I as an artist can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing." And I think that he's kind of nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people, and to me too. I believe, although I may not be quite as refined as aesthetically as he is, that I can appreciate the beauty of the flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension of 1 centimeter, there's also beauty at a smaller dimensions. The inner structure, also the processes, the fact that the colors and the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color. It adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in the lower forms? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it subtracts. You asked me if an ordinary person, by studying hard, would get to be able to imagine these things like I imagine. Of course, I was an ordinary person who studied hard.